On the path to personal liberation, we have to understand and confront our generational inheritance. What has been passed on to us from our parents and our parents' parents, and more likely will be passed on by you to your children. There is one topic, one subject that is very, very relevant to a lot of us today, and that is parents who may be war survivors. War is not something that has stopped hundreds of years ago and is no longer being perpetuated. The Second World War took place less than 100 years ago. That means that there are survivors of that war still alive today. Apart from the World War, many more wars have taken place and are still taking place on this planet. That means that war trauma continues to be perpetuated. So why is this relevant when we are talking about liberating ourselves? Well, Martin Miller, the son of Alice Miller, a very prominent psychologist who wrote many books and has signified childhood trauma as the place to start for healing adult dysfunctions. Martin Miller, who is Alice Miller's son, is also a psychologist and has recently come out with his own book. It's called The True Drama of the Gifted Child. And he's bringing, in my opinion, groundbreaking information and research regarding war trauma and how it is perpetuated from one generation to the next. I wholly recommend his book. I think it's a fantastic book and a fantastic addition to any bookshelf, but especially those of us who have experienced war trauma or have parents who've experienced war trauma or grandparents. I'm going to start with a few quotes to color war survivors and what life looks like for them after the war. Elie Wiesel, who survived Auschwitz, says it excellently for survivors of war when she says, "They eat, they laugh, they love. They seek money, fame, recognition, like the others. But it isn't true. They are playing or pretending, sometimes without even knowing it. These people have been amputated. They have not lost their legs or their eyes, but their joy of life." Martin Miller himself talks about survivors in the following way. He says they want nothing more than to undo their experience. They erect a wall of silence and split off what they have experienced. They avoid any situation that reminds them of what they have been through. Unfortunately, they do not succeed. Rather, the next generation is woven into the split-off horror of those experiences and thus taken as hostages into captivity. Later says, the children of the victims of persecution learn that there are experiences in their parents' past that may not be talked about. Yet by this silence, also the wounds are taken on by the next generation. Many during the war will have experienced traumas, emotions of being persecuted, unsafe, losing all of their property, losing control, being violated. As refugees post-war, they experience themselves as lesser than other people who haven't lost their properties. They are viewed as the poor, dirty, the unwanted. When these emotions, when these realities are repressed when their traumas are repressed, they don't disappear. They are transferred cross-generationally in their relationships with their children, with whom they attempt to be possessively close with. It is understandable that a person who endured that level of trauma will want to have children because they will need a ray of hope. If they live and act and pursue and feel no joy, they will try to feel alive again through the process of bringing new life into the world. However, this new life will also bring with it all of their fears and repressed traumas, their need to be in control, the need to never lose them, the need to raise them to a certain way, never be persecuted again. And so any criticism, any dislike, any rejection from their child can really send them psychologically and emotionally in a bad place, which then this makes them unable to perform their parenting duties effectively and healthily for that child. Martin Miller, in his book, goes on to say that we know from studies about children of the Holocaust survivors that they are very much monopolized by their parents. So children of Holocaust survivors are very much monopolized by their parents. These children have to represent for their parents the emotional counterpart that was missing during the bad time. These children become their parents' crutch and a means of existence. Adult children of war survivors respond to their parents' advancements and expectations in one of four ways. So parents who have undergone war will try to control their children. They will want to be in charge of their children. They will want to gain aliveness and purpose and joy through their children's lives. And for that to happen, their children need to obey and live by their rules and of what will make them feel good and okay inside. They need to be stable for their parents. They need to not have a personality or wants that deviate from those of the parent. The parent needs this relationship for their own emotional well-being. And so these children will be controlled and manipulated throughout their lifetimes. Now, this will be the attempt of some of the Holocaust or other war survivors. How the children respond once they are adults is totally up to them. And children respond in one of four ways. The first way is acceptance. They accept their parents' bid to control their lives. They're okay to allow the parent to be enmeshed with them in this lifetime. They find that they need this enmeshment in their own lives. They welcome it. They don't feel secure enough to venture off without the parent. The parent is sometimes valued more like a partner or a spouse rather than an actual parent. What the role of the spouse is, or the partner in life as adults, is that you will walk alongside each other in life, throughout life, and you will make sure that you walk alongside each other. Now, this parent has this unspoken pact with the child. They're supposed to walk alongside each other. They're supposed to make joint decisions. They're supposed to figure out where they're going to live and how they're going to meet their needs and how many children that adult child will have. And rather than this child now deciding with their own partner in life, they're deciding actually with their parent. That means that there's a cross-generational coalition. It simply means that the parent, which should be in a different category and have different relationship with the child, does not have this kind of relationship, but this parallel kind of relationship with the child. At the same time, the parent is in charge of this relationship. Even though the adult child may be given some leeway at times and in certain domains, the parent is in charge. So it's a dysfunctional relationship. And yet it can function. It can provide a source of support and security for both these adults. And therefore, it is an option for adult children to continue accepting this kind of life for themselves. Now, the problem with this first option is that this child of the war survivor will now have difficulty forming other relationships with other adults, because neither their friendships or their spousal relationships or even the relationship with their children can ever come before this primary relationship. And this is where the dysfunction lies. The second option is fight. So the adult child expects that their parent will now treat them like an adult, expects that their parent, once they've grown, once they've become 18 years old, or they've graduated, or they've become financially independent, they're waiting for this parent to finally treat them like an equal adult, to stop parenting them, to stop controlling them, to stop manipulating them, to stop telling them what to do and who to be and what choices to make in life. And yet this adult realizes more and more that this parent is not going to give way to that. That this parent will never stop looking at them as the lesser able, less capable child that needs their presence and their assistance and them to choose for them. This creates an impossible situation, because no adult who is clearly able to see this dynamic can ever just, stay silent about it and say nothing about it, because it goes against our very humanity. Nobody was born here to have others move their legs and hands for them. And when you see that happening, it's infuriating. I'm an adult. I'm not a toddler. Get your hands off me, is the sensation that these adults will feel. So they have two options. They'll spend their lives fighting with their parent, back and forth, trying to change their parent, trying to get their parent to see, waiting for the parent to change, waiting for the parent to finally see them as equal, waiting until they get married, waiting until they have children, waiting until they retire. And it never actually happens for a lot of them. Now, this forces the child to live in a world where there's constant drama, and some might say war-like situations. You keep falling out and getting back together with, and falling out and getting back together with the parent. Many children in this circumstance will actually decide to move away from the parent because they don't want to have the fights be so frequent, and so they choose physical distance, move countries, move cities, just in hopes that the fights will lessen and the influence of the parent will be lesser in their lives. The third way that adult children of war survivors may react is that they'll go completely no contact. if a war survivor continues to deny their own traumas and continues to deny that their war traumas that have not been dealt with are now affecting their relationship with the child and have affected them and are still affecting them, and it just keeps, this conflict keeps happening, the adult child may finally decide that enough is enough and there will no longer be contact with this parent. This adult decides very painfully to step away, walk away from the relationship with their parent. It is heartbreaking to come to this realization in this stage. For anyone, severing the relationship with your parent is unlike any other relationship on the planet. No one else will be your mom and dad. You can have friends, you can have acquaintances, you can have teachers, and those are all valid relationships and they can be much more nurturing. But you only have one mother and one father, and there are many cultural events and times of the year when societally most people have interactions with these family members, and it can feel very lonely to children who decide this painful path. But no one will decide this unless the abuse that they feel and the weakening that they feel emanating, the toxicity they feel emanating from this war surviving parent is just too great for them to handle. This is a third option that adult children may choose to undergo. The fourth option is healthy reraising. This is the recommended option. This option does not necessarily have to do with whether you have contact with the parent or not. It can be under no contact with the parent, and it can also be under limited contact or more than that, contact with the parent. The key here is that we take responsibility for ourselves. We no longer leave it to the adult, to our parent, to give us our sense of self-worth. No matter what they say about what we're capable of or incapable of, we just find our self-worth from within and we don't budge. We don't believe what they say. We're not influenced by them anymore. We take our power back. When they were the adult and we were the children, they may have known better, or just society said they will choose for us. As adults, they no longer get to do that. It is up to us to reclaim our power back. We get to choose. We choose how we want our life to run, what our primary relationships will be. We get to choose to end this spousal, cross-generational coalition, this enmeshment, and have a different relationship with boundaries. It's not going to be easy, but this is the healthiest route, because this means that you're becoming healthy from within. And whether you're in contact or not with this person, with your parent, or with any other person, if you're healthy on the inside and you know your worth on the inside, your life will work out better than if your worth is dependent on relationships outside of you. So for anyone interested in this topic, I totally recommend the book of Martin Miller. It is biographical, based on the story of his mother. He doesn't blame his mother as such, but he is flagging up and bringing to consciousness the topic of war trauma and how war victims later on may completely dissociate from the part of their personality and live in a dysfunctional way, which therefore makes them dysfunctional parents and has harming effects on their children, not only when they're young and growing up, but especially when they're adults. I'm going to leave you with a quote by Alice Miller. Adults do not have to remain in a state of dependence and compliance towards their parents. They have the right to develop their potential autonomously. I hope this was helpful. I look forward to your comments. Let me know if I can be of any help, if you have any questions, and if there are any more video subjects that you'd like me to talk about.